Very good evening. Jai Shri Krishna Guru. Thank you for joining the Bhagavad Gita Satsang, the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Shri Saraswataya Namaha, Om Shri Guru Dattatreya Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. We'll be continuing from chapter 5. That is about the yoga of action and knowledge. And we will be discussing which is Sankhya Yoga and the yoga of disinterested action as described by Lord Shri Krishna, and also he further explains about the marks of the Sankhya Yogi and Nishkama Karma Yogi and their glories. So we have completed till verse 5. Let us begin from verse 6 onwards. Chapter 5 verse 6. Without Karma Yoga, however, Sankhya Yoga, that is renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of the mind, senses and body is difficult to accomplish. Whereas the Karma Yogi who keeps his mind fixed on God reaches Brahma in no time, Arjuna. So in the earlier verse, Lord Shri Krishna explained to Arjuna that of the two paths, Karma Yoga is very easy to accomplish, in the sense, though both are identical and their goal is one alone. But he says that Karma Yoga is easy to practice in comparatively to Sankhya Yoga. But we also discussed that without knowledge, how do you know what is the right action, or abstinence from action or inaction? All of those understanding will not come to us. So knowledge plays a very important role. First is right knowledge. Then you need to have the right tools, and then you go in the right direction. And Lord Shri Krishna is actually directing Arjuna in which direction he needs to go. But by what? First with knowledge. So coming back, here he's saying without Karma Yoga, however, Sankhya Yoga, that is renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of mind, senses and body is difficult to accomplish. Oh my God, this is quite important. You know why? See, because only when you perform karma, see, if you're not doing any action, then you're not overcoming anything, right? So here the Lord is saying without Karma Yoga, however, Sankhya Yoga, that is the knowledge. How do you renounce the renunciation of doership? What is he saying? That is Sankhya Yoga, that is the renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of mind, senses and body is difficult to accomplish. So do you see the correlation between each of these paths? Jnana is very important, and then karma plays equally an important role, and then the last path will be bhakti marga. Now he's saying the Sankhya Yoga is very difficult to attain without karma. Why? Because you have learned the knowledge, but if you don't perform the action and apply that knowledge while performing that action, that knowledge has no use. Then how will you overcome your mind? What is that you need to overcome here? That is renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of mind, senses and body is difficult to accomplish. So Karma Yoga is a very important aspect, but having the knowledge, you have to perform Karma Yoga. Renunciation of doership. Let us understand one by one. What is renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of mind, senses and body? What does that mean? That means, see, we have been discussing this in the last few satsangs, right, from chapter 3, 4 and now in 5. We all get very attached. I did this. I am the doer. The most important thing that happens in a human being is when you're on the path of karma, when you're performing any action, you take the ownership of that action. The sense of doership rests with you. Now, where do you need to renunciate? Renunciation happens where? Renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of mind It is not physical. See, physically you're performing an act, okay? An action is physically performed. But the sense of doership, renunciation of doership in relation to all activities in the mind, senses and body. You know, the reason why we are so attached to that ownership of that action is because we think we are the doer. And this doership, that activity happens where it's not the physically what you do, it's mentally what you think. It's mentally what you feel. You get attached mentally. I gave someone the job. I gave someone something. I gave that person, money. I gave that person a house. We always, talk like this. So what is happening? We are always thinking about the doership. We are so attached. I did this. I gave this. Who is this I who can give? And who is this I who is doing? Please understand one very important lesson. We are all nothing but the tools and instruments in the hands of the Divine Lord. There is nobody, in this world who is responsible for that action. See, we are all an, instrument which the Divine Lord uses to serve His purpose in this world. But the moment you say, I did this, I am the greatest, what has come in you? Ego. And where is the question of renunciation happening? So the knowledge of the understanding of Sankhya Yoga, which is what the Lord Shri Krishna has explained to Arjuna, that you are not the doer, you should, you should give up the, you have to renunciate the fruits of action, you have to give up the ownership or the sense of doership, and also don't get attached to the fruit of the action. And most important, he has taught in second chapter, have equanimity of mind. Strive to achieve the yoga of equanimity. These are his words. Be self-control. The teachings are so profound and so powerful. But even then, Arjuna is still not understood. And we are in chapter 5 now. Why? Because his mind is continuously throwing doubts and questions. So he is not having any knowledge. So the Lord is teaching him. Now in the first question in the chapter 5 was, he's telling, please tell me, Lord Shri Krishna, which is the path which is good for me, conducive to my good, whether is it Sankhya Yoga or whether is it Karma Yoga. So the Lord has to explain to him that without knowledge, that is without jnana, how will you understand whether you are performing the right action or not? And what it means to perform selfless action, nishkama karma is what we call. That is what the Lord is teaching here. And now if you don't have the knowledge, you can't even perform. So that is why he is saying without karma yoga, however, Sankhya Yoga, that is renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of mind, body and senses is difficult to accomplish. You can't achieve it. So performing Karma Yoga is very important, but with the right knowledge. And the knowledge says we have to renunciate, renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of what? Mind, body and senses. All three. Even when you perform with the body. Look, I worked so hard. I earned all the money and I gave it to this person, that person, that person. We always take credit of ourselves, Have you seen whether it is your parents or anybody else's parents? Most of us, have experienced and we listen to this. I really worked hard to get you educated. And then they are expecting an end result, which is that today they have educated their son or daughter and tomorrow this son or daughter owes it back to them. They have to take care of them. Is that what it is? The Lord only is teaching your duty is to work alone. Your right is to work alone and not bother about the fruit of the action. Whether your son and daughter are going to take care of you when you are old is none of your business. Why are you expecting? Why are you attached? That you gave, which means I need to have a return on investment. I told you, long ago I just gave this very interesting incident that happened. Someone I know of was telling us, please tell my son to, go and work. I don't want him to live in this village and he has no future. He's done an engineering degree and he has to go make money. And this father of this person and this father, of this individual was telling us that look, he has spent a lot of money, educating his son and sending him to a convent, ensuring that he stays in the hostel, has paid has paid fees, exorbitant fees, everything he has done, and today his son is refusing to go and make that money. What is he actually telling? He's saying, I need my ROI. Simple as that. He's saying, I have spent so much money on my son, sending him to the best school, giving him the best education, putting him in the hostel, bearing all the expenses, cost all along till the time he has finished his engineering. And today, my son is refusing to go and work in a corporate world where he can make more money and he can be very comfortable. Then he can also give back to me, which is I need my return on investment. So where is the question of anybody performing an action selflessly? There is always a motivation behind what one does. Whether even if it is your parents, are they doing it because they have to just do? They are your parents? No, they're not. They're not thinking like that at all. But what are they doing? They are only doing. They think they're doing whatever that they are doing, because they have to be taken care at some when they are old, when they cross certain age, and when they have to be, dependent on somebody, and that somebody will be you. So they already have made a plan. See, my Guruji teaches something very beautiful. He'll always tell his disciples and other, devotees of his. He'll say, look, you have been given the children, the family, everybody, because God wants you to take care of them. You are nothing but mere a servant of your children or your wife. What makes you think you are responsible for them? You're the father of these children and you're the one who's taking care of them. Who is this I? Who is this father? You're just a Zariya. Zariya means you're a medium. In the last satsang, I gave an example about this great actor who, bought this house, a beautiful bungalow amidst of an island, and then he got married. Within a year his wife divorced him, and then he was a dog lover, and he had like 20 plus dogs around, and they were living in this huge bungalow amidst of an island, with the centralized AC and all the luxury of people coming to privately take care of them. They were every day given best of the food. And that time this actor understood that he's only a medium. He never said that God, he is giving to the dogs, he's providing for them. He never acknowledged that. On the contrary, what did he acknowledge? He said that because it is in the destiny of those dogs, I've just been made a medium so that I can provide for them. God has used me as a medium to provide for them. It is their destiny because of which I have been given some of these, leftovers. That is called humility. He didn't say, oh, I am the greatest. Look, I am taking care of these dogs. They are my dogs and I am the one who's providing. That ego didn't exist in him. And what was he able to achieve? He was able to renunciate the sense of doership, pertaining to all activities of mind, body and senses. So here he did not acknowledge that I am the one who's providing. I am the one who's taking care of them. He never acknowledged. On the contrary, he said that because of the destiny that the dogs have come with, I have been offered few pennies on the way. It is in their destiny that they have to be given that life. So I was able to get little bit out of that. That is called humility. But otherwise, what is in the normal world, a man thinks that he is the one who's responsible for everything. Many years ago when I had joined one of the corporations, I work for corporate. I'm in the IT world. I thought the company is all running because of me. I was so passionate about my work. I thought if not for me, the company will not run or exist. That's the kind of madness I was working with. Yeah, on one side it is good to have the kind of dedication and passion because work is worship. You have to think the company belongs to you. That is when you will be able to do justice to your job. But what I didn't understand is that I am nobody. I am not the one who is responsible for the running of the company or not. I am only I'm the one piece of jigsaw puzzle in the entire, in the block, in the framework. I'm just that one piece who's performing that particular task. Whether I live or not, whether I exist or not, even if I leave the company and go, the company is not married to me. So I just need to do justice to what is given to me, which means I have to perform nishkama karma. Work is worship. So the day I understood, it took me a long time to realize this truth. And my Krishna Guruji taught me this beautiful lesson. In that he taught me, see, remember, no matter what whatever work that you do, you need to understand that you're serving the Divine Lord alone. You're not serving any human being. You're not doing it for yourself, or we have to always do it for ourselves, because the self within us, the divine self, is what we are serving. But other than that, you're not doing it to pamper yourself or pamper your ego, or feel elated or deflated. You're not titillating your senses, or you're not doing it because you need to feel mighty pleased. That is not why you're doing it for. You're doing that job because work is worship. It is part of your karma. It is part of your duties. So you have to perform the task. How? Nishkama karma. That is, selfless action has to be performed. See, today, no matter how many times I repeat the same lesson over and over and over again, it is not understood. It is very easy to feel elated in your mind. When somebody praises you, let me tell you, if someone comes and tells you, oh God, you're looking so beautiful, you're definitely going to feel good. But that is what we should not feel. Equanimity of mind. That is what we have to achieve. And then when somebody says something bad to you or insults you in front of others, you feel extremely humiliated and you don't like it. Why is he talking to me like that? I don't like that language. I don't like this. That I don't like should not exist at all. So that's a very important lesson that we need to understand. And that is where equanimity of mind. The sari that I'm wearing, it represents the color of Lord Sri Krishna. It is a mix of it's got a white, it's got a black and a grey. The Lord is the best of both the world. He is white as well as black, but he's centered because he's the both. He's everything, and his color is not blue, it is grey. This is the true color of Lord Sri Krishna. The sari that I'm wearing today, the color defines Lord Sri Krishna, which means he's always in that grey zone. He's centered. He's not swaying between the pairs of opposites. He's always lost in his own self. He's white as well as black, which is why he's in between. The white and the black comes from him alone. He is centered, and that centered is called the grey zone. And his color is actually grey. It's not blue. And that is what we don't know. And that is why he's teaching that we always need to have equanimity of mind. It is in the state of the equanimity will you experience the oneness with the Divine Lord. He's actually telling, he's revealing where is that you will be able to find him. And this is what we are missing. To achieve that oneness with the Divine Lord, you have to be centered at all times, because he's always perfectly established in oneness within himself. He's centered. You can find him in that equipoise state. He's always living in that yoga of equanimity. That is where you can achieve that oneness with the Divine Lord. I have actually explained this in chapter 2. If you don't remember, please go back and listen to my satsangs in chapter 2. In that you will find the Lord has revealed where can you find him. And this is a very difficult thing for us to understand. We think the Lord is somewhere. We have to achieve something. We have to do something. No, it's very simple. But that simple lesson is not understood by us. It is not understood by our mind. You know why? The mind doesn't want to listen to you. The mind is like a horse. It is running hither, thither. So what is the Lord doing? He's reign. You have to give the reins of your life. That's your life to him, and then he will be able to direct the horse. So you have to have the control. That is why he says, Arjuna, you be self-control. You have to control your mind. But how does that happen? When you give the charge of the reins of your mind to the Divine Lord, when you surrender to him. And that surrender doesn't happen because our ego is so strong and our attachment to our mind, body, senses is extremely strong. It's very strong, and because of which we are unable to overcome. And that is why we are always swaying between the right, wrong, good, bad. The pairs of opposites constantly exist in our world. So we are not able to perform nishkama karma. The selfless action is not happening by us. We're always attached. We feel mighty pleased if we do something great in our world. My Guruji will always say, so what? You come and tell him that, oh, you were able to accomplish something good in your life. You did this, you did that, you got the highest mark for the first time. You're kind of very happy. What my Guruji will say, that is part of your life any which way. So what is a big deal in that? Okay, move on. What next? That is how he will teach. Because you don't have to, enjoy, sit on your laurels and feel mighty pleased about it. It is no big deal. What is the next you're going to do? What is the next you're going to do? What are the things you're going to, work on and accomplish? That is what he's going to see. He's not going to be bothered about, okay, yeah, this one time I got, 100 marks. I achieved something very great. I got a best review in my office. Yeah, you have to always be the best. So how does it matter? That is exactly what my Guruji will tell. So let us not sit and dwell in what we have won, what we have lost. Both doesn't matter. That is why we say success should not get to your head and failure to your heart. You have to always be having equipoise of mind so that you will be able to continue to perform your task and keep progressing ahead. And that is what is missing. So, whereas the Karma Yogi who keeps his mind fixed on God reaches Brahma in no time, Arjuna. So what is he saying? He's saying, whereas the Karma Yogi who keeps his mind fixed on God reaches Brahma in no time, Arjuna. Why is he saying this? Because through work is worship. And when you do Krishna Arpan to anything that you're doing, offering all your work, it's like dedicate all your work to the God alone, to the divine Lord alone. At that time, you know that anything that you're doing for the Lord alone. You're serving Him. And in that service, you will always be able to achieve that oneness with the divine Lord. You're dedicating all actions to God alone. And that means what? Your life is no more yours. You're just mere a tool in the hands of the divine Lord. At that time, you will achieve the supreme goal, which is called God realization or self-realization. But otherwise, you can't. So he's saying, without Karma Yoga, however, Sankhya Yoga, that is renunciation of doership in relation to all activities of mind, senses and body, is difficult to accomplish. Whereas the Karma Yogi who keeps his mind fixed on God reaches Brahma in no time. So that is what he's saying. So Sankhya Yoga is knowledge, but just through knowledge, though it is, you can achieve God realization, but he's saying it's difficult without performing the karma. It's not so easy. So this is an easier path is what he's answering to Arjuna's question. It all begins from what Arjuna had asked. Okay, let us continue the next verse. The Karma Yogi who has fully conquered his mind and mastered his senses, whose heart is pure and who has identified himself with the self of all beings, with God, remains untainted even though performing action. Oh my God, it is not an easy verse, but let me explain. It's a very difficult thing for a normal human being to achieve in this world. What is he saying? He's saying the Karma Yogi who has fully conquered his mind and mastered his senses, whose heart is pure and who has identified himself with the self of all beings, with God, remains untainted even though performing action. So what is that the Karma Yogi has conquered? Conquered fully his mind. Oh my God, it's a very difficult task. It's a very difficult feat to accomplish. The mind is never under your control. Conquer, oh my God. How can you conquer your mind? The earlier verse defines that. How do you conquer? First, you have to give up the attachment to the mind. You have to surrender the mind unto the lotus feet of the divine Lord. Until then, you cannot achieve the ability to control it. Conquering is a different story, which means you have overcome your mind. Rather, you have mastered it. You have controlled, in the sense you become the master of the mind. See, for a normal human being, the mind is the master, because the mind dictates what the person has to do, because he'll follow his mind. We say, no, you have to listen to your mind. Many of them will say you have to listen to your heart. Very few people will say that. But most of them will say you have to listen to your mind. So your mind is your master. So the mind tells you, dictates to you what you should do, how you should do. It will guide you on all the wrong path. See, mind is again a tool. You have to make your mind your best friend. You have to train your mind to show you the right path. Instead, you will listen to the mind, whose nature itself is to pull you down, first give you all negatives. It's because it is ruled by Indradev. Who's the lord of the mind? He's Indradev. Indra is the king of the heaven. And the mind, the mind is ruled by Indra. Indra is always egoistic. He doesn't want, He always wants to be in that power and position. He doesn't want somebody else to take over his throne. And he's always afraid of losing his throne. So he's going to instigate. He's going to put all sorts of obstacles on the path. So how do you fight that out? So first you have to conquer. You have to control. With what? The knowledge. And then so the Karma Yogi who has fully conquered his mind and mastered his senses. Mastered his senses means what? The Lord has taught such a profound lesson on senses in chapter 2 itself. All of this have been taught to Arjuna, but yet he has to repeat. Why? Because Arjuna is not able to learn. He's not able to understand. He's saying one who has mastered his senses means what? When the senses come in contact with the sense object, you don't have to get attached to it. The moment you get attached to it, you don't have to dwell in that. The moment you dwell in that, you get attached to it. From attachment comes what? Desires. So then you're all constantly going to be running after, I want this, I need to get this, I have to do this, I have to do that. You're constantly in that zone. Then what happens? Then it is very, very difficult for you to evolve, overcome your senses. Because every single time you see something, you want it. Every single time you want to eat something, we're always titillating our senses. So when are we going to master the senses? The senses should not react. Any time when the senses come in contact with the sense objects. So what is missing here? The missing aspect is we have not been able to master our senses. Then whose heart is pure and who has identified himself with the self. So this is a very, very difficult lesson. In chapter 4 itself is teaching, why he's just rushing through, no? But he's saying, you have to first achieve all of this before you can, remain untainted. How do you remain untainted, undisturbed, unperturbed? Whose heart is pure and who has identified himself with the self of all beings, that is God. Heart is pure. How do you attain the purity of your heart? See, when you are privileged or when you are blessed to have a spiritual master in your life or any other guide, or even if you're having a quest and you're learning about, the truth about God, you're reading some scriptures, that's also a journey. All of that will enable the purification of heart. It's a process. But especially when you're under the tutelage of a great master, a real master, he puts you through that process of purification. So without the purification of heart, the mind, the surrender doesn't happen to the lotus feet of the Divine Lord or the Guru. It doesn't happen at all. So the purification is what you have to achieve. So what does it mean? Whose heart is pure? So first you have to purify your heart. Until such time, you can't evolve anywhere. And then who has identified, once the purification of the heart has happened, the mind is purified, the mind is crystal clear, then what happens? He has identified himself with the self. Then you have realized the self. You have identified. Identified means what? I, that which thinks that I am separate than the God, is no longer exist. You have already one with that self. You have identified, I am that self. I am that Parabrahma. I am not somebody, I'm not this ordinary human being, this mind, body, senses that I think I am. I have this name called the bodily name, right? Somebody gave me a name, RajShree. Who gave me that name? This body's parents gave me that name. Is that the name? So where is RajShree? Can you define? Even if I cut the body into pieces, you can't still find. So what is the identity that I have? That I have that association with the body, the mind. I believe this is me. That name which has been given by my worldly parents. And I associate myself with that. And I become completely attached with that. So that attachment I have to overcome. So my identification has to be with that higher self. That I am that spirit. I am not this body, the mind and the senses. I am that Parabrahma. That is what Lord is teaching. Then who has identified himself with the self of all beings. But the self of all beings is what? To be able to see God in everybody. That's a very important thing. And that's a very difficult lesson to achieve. Imagine, you see some human being, you're already tainted. What happens? That object has either attraction or repulsion. We did this lesson in one of the chapters, right? The sense object comes with an attraction and repulsion. It is already embedded in that. The moment you see it, either you are attracted to it or you repulse. Both should not happen. So where is the the tainting of the object? The tainting happens in the mind. So that is something you are able to overcome. That overcoming of that tainting can only be possible when you see God in everything. And until then you can't. So how do you see God in everything? By realizing the truth that God lives in everybody. Who am I to differentiate? See, my Guruji will always teach me one very important lesson, and that lesson is, please forgive everybody for their ignorance. You know why? We all are born with our inherent nature. The nature, they are all driven by the nature. So the nature will make them do those actions. So my Guruji will say, please forgive them. They are all ignorant beings. This morning somebody was telling a very interesting incident. So this person had met his friend and he was talking about the significance of a guru. See, today in our world, we don't understand the significance of a guru. Why? Because either we are all ignorant beings, we just believe going to temple, doing pujas, doing pariharas and worshipping some idol is where you'll get God. God doesn't exist over there. Please remember, Guru is the doorway to God. In ISKCON temple, there's a very beautiful depiction. There's, all the gods are there, and Prabhupada's image, and a murti is also there. What does it mean? They also worship Prabhupada because he's a devotee of the Lord. He was instrumental in establishing, Lord Sri Krishna's mission, establishing ISKCON. It's a beautiful thing. He went and talked about the glories of the Divine Lord. He, wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, got it written, and he printed those books. So there's a very beautiful story about how Prabhupada was instrumental in doing certain things. So he becomes the greatest devotee of Lord Sri Krishna. And so they honor the Guru. They revere him as a Guru. That is not wrong. Guru is the doorway to God. So he only did the duty, the service of the Divine Lord. Telling the world who is Lord Sri Krishna all about. Radha Krishna. They established the beautiful idol of Radha Krishna. Then you have obviously, other devotees of the Lord. So they've all been established over there. That doesn't mean that, people don't understand, right? There is a significance. Why do we do what we do? So please remember, without a Guru, God realization cannot happen. Guru is the doorway to God. And this is a beautiful concept. No, I wouldn't say concept. That is the truth, the param truth. It's the supreme truth. But we are all ignorant beings because we have not been taught. Our forefathers, or wherever we have come from, we only have said, okay, you just worship God, you have to go to temple, you have to worship that black image, that stone which is there in the temple. But does the stone have that essence, or is it your faith? As is your faith, so are your experiences. I have described this n number of times through this beautiful scripture called Guru Charitra. Who is this Guru? What are the qualities? How do you recognize a real master? And what is the purpose of his existence? And how do Gurus come about? This is something I've done through Guru Charitra. And Lord Dattatreya is a supreme master. He is Lord Sri Krishna himself. He is an avatar of Lord Sri Krishna, who has taken the form of a supreme master so that he can establish this Guru Tattva, the concept of Guru philosophy. I wouldn't say philosophy, it's a principle. Because there are two aspects to it. A Guru is a Tattva, a principle, which manifests so that it can teach the world how to attain God. It's only through Guru can you realize God. So that is what is being taught. But how many of us have ever made an effort to go and learn about it? No, none of us. We don't even know. Why? Because our ancestors themselves never made an effort. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is supposed to be our holy scripture. We swear on this. But have you ever learned this? Nobody has done. Nobody has made an effort to learn or understand what is our Vedas all about. We only talk some nonsense, based on hearsay or whatever people have followed around us. So ignorance thrives, unfortunately. So today the knowledge is missing, and most importantly, it's not the knowledge, it's the right knowledge that is missing. And that is why the divine manifests time and again to establish dharma, especially when the adharma is rising. It is on rise. So he comes to establish dharma and put people back on path because they have derailed. That is what has happened. So coming back, so you cannot say that you can't see God in everything. The Guru is the doorway to God. First, you have to see God in the Guru. Until the time you don't experience, then how do you realize God? And that is why the Guru teaches us that we have to see God in everybody. And we forget this basic lesson itself. It's not so easy to achieve this God realization. And then what happens? Then one who has been able to, identify himself with the self of all beings, seeing this entire universe as the divine Lord alone. And he's not seeing that they are separate and he's separate. That is called God realization and remains untainted even though performing action. Then what happens? He remains untainted by what happens around him while performing all his actions to the highest of his abilities. And this is one important lesson which we fail to understand. Why does that happen? That happens because we human beings think I am the doer. We are attached to the mind, body and senses. These three things you have to overcome, and most important is striving to practice the yoga of equanimity. Until you don't do this, forget it, you can't further go along. But here, because Arjuna has asked these questions, Lord Shri Krishna is very graciously explaining to him. So let us continue. Chapter 5, verse 8 and 9. However, the Sankhya Yogi who knows the reality of things must believe that he does nothing, even though seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating or drinking, walking, sleeping, breathing, speaking, answering the calls of nature, grasping and opening or closing the eyes, holding that it is the senses alone that are moving among the objects. This is again a very profound truth. Have you seen the great sannyasis who are actually sitting in contemplation of God? They all sit in the Himalayas. They have given up their life. They are practicing Jnana Yoga. So in the path of Jnana Yoga, I'm just giving an example of a sannyasi, but there are other yogis as well who just want to decipher God, okay? And to them, what is he saying? However, the Sankhya Yogi, the yogi who has knowledge about the truth, who knows the reality of things, that means he already understands that he is not the body. I am that Parabrahma. He has this knowledge. So what should he do? Must believe that he does nothing. There is no action that he is performing. Even though he is able to see with his eyes, hear, touch, smell, eat or drink, walk, sleep, breathe, speak, answer the calls of nature. The body is performing its actions, okay? Grasping, opening his eyes or closing his eyes, or holding that. So having all these actions performed, holding that, it is the senses. What is working? It is the senses alone that are moving among their objects. The senses are moving among the sense objects. So he is not doing, even though he is eating. See, this is a very beautiful state to be in, that the knowledge of understanding. See, in Sankhya Yogi's case, he has already deciphered God. So he has understood the truth that he is not the body. And he knows that I am that Parabrahma. The jnanis know, I am that. There's always a say. This very beautiful text called I am that, the scripture, where he says, I am that God. But please remember, Jnana Yoga has a certain limitation, which is the Jnana Yogis get this ego of knowledge, and the ego of knowledge is very dangerous. And when you think that you know it all, then you fall down. Then you be from the divine, that understanding, to become a grass human being takes no time. So that's another very difficult thing, and that is why Lord Shri Krishna says, it's better to become a karma yogi. It's much easier. Through your action, selfless action, you can achieve that God realization. But both the path leads to the one alone, which is God realization. But in case of how does the Jnana Yogi have to seek? After understanding the truth. See, the Sankhya Yogi who knows the reality of things, he knows the truth. He's already realized the truth. So then what he should do? He should just holding that. He has to hold this understanding within him that it is the senses alone that are moving among the sense objects. It is the senses alone that are moving among the sense objects. He is not the one who is doing. He is not the one who is committing that action. But that doesn't mean that you can commit a sin and then say, oh, the senses are moving in the sense among the sense objects, so I am not the one. I can go murder somebody and say, oh yeah, the senses did the job. That is stupidity. So please remember, he understands that he is not the one who's performing. Like in my Krishna Guruji, of course, he's far greater than anything because he's God himself. He's Lord Shri Krishna himself. So what does he say? For him, there is no other bodies. The mind body doesn't exist. So when the senses come in contact with the sense object, this is exactly what happens. They are performing that action, but he very well knows, that he's not the one who's doing it. He's not the one who's eating it. It is just senses are moving among the sense objects. So for him, there is no mind which is dwelling. Oh yeah, this food is great. It's tasting yummy. Oh look, I'm enjoying the food. Those are the things that doesn't exist, but he'll depict. What he does, he just enacts. Oh yeah, the food is good. He's just enacting, but for him, there's no mind in that. So that the dwelling in that object doesn't happen at all. That is how this yogi has to be, the Sankhya yogi. This is the truth. And once you understand this truth, then you're perfect in that God realization. So the tainting of the mind doesn't happen. So in both the cases, the goal is to attain that supreme bliss, that is God realization alone. So either it is a path of jnana or karma, but the path of karma is much easy. That is what Lord Shri Krishna is teaching Arjuna. So with that, we will end here. We will stop at verse 8 to 9. In the next satsang, we will continue from verse 10 onwards. Thank you for joining the Bhagavad Gita Satsang, the way of life as described by Lord Shri Krishna to Arjuna. Om Shri Mahaganapate Namaha. Om Shri Gurudev Datta. Om Shri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Digambara Digambara Shripad Vallabha Digambara. Om Shri Krishna Guru Nathanatha Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Devi Durgaya Namaha. Om Shri Krishna Arpanam Namastu. Krishnam Vande Jagadguru.